Welcome everybody to our open office hours. We're back with Jason Coleman. It's Thursday for everybody else, but it's Friday for me, so that's nice. I have a 4-day long weekend ahead of me. So that's
nice. Hello.
But we are back. Yeah, we're going to talk. This is a continuation of our Built on Value series that we started, I guess, 2 weeks ago. Not having an open office hours or coding with Sam last week has really thrown me off. I feel like we haven't been on a live stream in a long time.
You set your calendar to that and it like throws you. I think the answer is just make more videos and you'll have an even more structured life.
So this is a continuation. Last time we talked about We Are Human. That video is on our YouTube channel if you're interested to go back and watch that. This one is going to be on purposeful work.
Yeah, exciting. And maybe you can throw up the core values chart.
Yeah.
And give a teaser. Yeah, in the earlier video, I think I talked about the importance of core values in general. And so I won't rehash all of that. I will tease a future value, respect, because it's a lot of these values have that same kind of flavor. I remember when we shared these with the team and we're like, yeah, one of our core values is having respect for each other and our customers and this work you're doing. And someone on the team was like, isn't that kindergarten, preschool stuff? Like, we're supposed to know this. And for one, like, you'd be surprised. I don't know, there's disrespectful in the world and it's good to be clear about it. Like, we don't want to work with those folks. We don't want to have them as customers. That said, there's lots of subtleties in all this. It's like, hey, I mean, like anything, you learn it in school, but you're kind of learning, for the rest of your life about it too. And purposeful work and being responsible, next week's value, but purposeful work we're talking about here is one of those values that you should learn in preschool. And it actually comes, like, the idea to put it into this framing came from the Montessori school that our kids go to. Was, so when they were in preschool, this was one of the core values of the Montessori school system. And in that context, what it means is when you have young children doing work, and Montessori is like a play-based education, kindergarten, but it goes up through higher grades as well. But it's like, don't play or have toys for the sake of it. Like, let's have, they call them jobs, which is an indicator as well. They're calling them jobs that map to everyday skills that it's important for the kids to learn. So it's kind of like, instead of learning something, that maybe doesn't have any application in the real world, the Montessori system will teach your kids how to cook at a very young age, like when they're still in kindergarten, and how to use even something like using scissors before most folks are comfortable putting sharp objects in the, hands of kids. I think I might not be speaking for every Montessori school, but they don't use those like plastic, kind of dull scissors. They're like, give the kids the sharp ones and teach them how to like respect the tools and use it, and kind of bypass this like, early stage and get them towards, learning things that are going to be useful in life. So that's in the context of Montessori, but what does it mean to do purposeful work in the context of, a business? And I think this, it maybe first, like, one of the reasons this is important both in school and in business is because when folks are doing work that they feel has a purpose behind it, they're going to learn better and faster. They're going to be more interested in what they're doing. They're going to dive in deeper and take it more seriously. And then they're going to feel better. Like, it doesn't feel good to do work that gets thrown away. When we hire folks, we give them trial work. And we believe that's one of the best ways, or the only way to really understand how we're going to work together. And if it works for us and it works for the person being hired, is to actually work together on something. And we don't want to work on like a dummy project that, here's just something, like a brain teaser or something, coding example. It's like, let's actually build something together. Let's actually do a marketing plan together. Let's actually write a blog post together. And that's purposeful work. At the end of it, we'll get a piece of content or something that we're going to deliver and give the customers and things. And that's good for us as a business that we're making useful things, but it's also the person who's, doing the work feels like feels better. And the flip side of that feels bad sometimes when we do work in the trial or other times, and at the end of it, we're like, you know what, this didn't go where we wanted it to. We realized it's unnecessary. Someone just built a better version and it's free and everyone's using it and ours isn't as good. And it kind of, it goes away. That feels bad. It's going to happen every once in a while, but we try to avoid that. So, the work that we do, we're always human. It's not just about the work. We have lives outside of work. But when we're working, we want to work on purposeful stuff. We want to work on things that are making an impact in the world. And it means a lot to me and Kim as the business owners too. We are motivated by the fact that our software is used on tens of thousands of sites and helps people to get paid. Like, we're not necessarily motivated by the status and the money as much as really helping people get things done. And our team as well. I mean, we don't want to pay people, right? Sam, you want to get paid. But if you potentially work else, if you didn't care about the work you were doing.
This is not a volunteer position.
Yeah, no, we like to pay people too. So maybe some specifics in how Purposeful Work comes up in work here. I'll talk about development and like product development and planning through ShapeUp. I'll talk about some general hacks that help to make sure that you're always doing purposeful work. And then I'll talk about how it comes up in support and some other kind of business aspects. And I think I'm going to talk about how we do things at PMPro. This is probably interesting, hopefully interesting for folks to see behind the scenes how we operate and get a feel for how seriously we take things and why we're doing what we do. But we're a small business. Our customers are often small businesses or organizations that are raising money and running teams. And so hopefully y'all can learn from this. It's purposeful work for me to talk about how we do things because it might help you get an idea for something you can apply to your own business. So feel free to ask questions as they come up and afterwards in the comments and things like that. So digging into development, purposeful work for development. One really clear example of this in like coding software is there's this term called refactoring the software. And refactoring basically means coding it in a different way to work differently, kind of roughly. And our lead developer, David Parker, just had a good post on LinkedIn, which was like a very specific example of, hey, this thing is broken. I could fix it really quickly with a kind of hacky fix, or I could refactor it to work the way I feel like it should work now. And which should we do? I think it's in the nature of developers to want to refactor. We're nerds. We nerd out about like the smallest things. We stay up to date, most of us, or some. I mean, maybe I'm typecasting different developers on like the good tools that are coming out. Things are moving so quickly. So like in the PHP space, and I'm nerding out for the business owners who maybe don't know programming. PHP is the server language that WordPress is written in and Paid Memberships Pro. And there was like a version 5. And they flirted with like a version 6 and then they scrapped it. And then they came back and made a version 7 like 4 or 5 years ago. But once they hit version 7, they went from doing an update every 3 years to like an update every 3 months. And they went from like version 7 through like 7.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8.4, I think we're up to now. And so if you were a PHP developer for a while, it was like the programming language is very stable. And then in the course of a couple of years, it's like, here's all these cool new things you could do, new ways to write code in PHP. And that's just one aspect of building websites. JavaScript is even more kind of insane how the frameworks and the code behind JavaScript has changed in the previous year. So everything's changing, right? So the programming languages are changing, the tooling is changing. We're always growing. So as a programmer, we often we code something and then we learn along the way. I wish I did it a different way. We learn new patterns. So whenever we write code, it's almost desirable that like a few months after you write and ship something, you're like, actually, I would do it totally different now, or a little bit different, or kind of different. Anyway, so in terms of refactoring, some folks can't resist that urge. They're like, it has to be perfect. And I mean, I'm on the record that there is no perfect code. It serves a purpose. There's there's competing priorities in the code. And it's always changing. Like the things we integrate is another piece that changes. Stripe keeps integrating, changing their API, and MailChimp and ConvertKit and all these things we integrate with change their APIs. eyes over time and what they do. Anyway, there's like this urge to always be on the latest, greatest, to do it the best way possible. And it's good to do it that way, because it's like you want, you know, your code to be flexible and robust and good for the future. And like code is poetry is like a phrase that's thrown around the WordPress space and in general and open source and coding communities. And you kind of, there's this urge to make it perfect. Anyway, that said, so a lot of developers get stuck in this, like, let's refactor, because it innately is better to be on the latest, greatest thing, to be done exactly how I would code it today. And at Purposeful, we have a rule where we say we don't refactor for the sake of it. So we're never gonna, hey, like, we're using an old system, there's a new system, so I'm gonna code it to work on the new system. We always have to refactor to make sure it's purposeful. There has to be like a feature that this refactor will enable, an outcome. Like, so maybe it's not like a feature, but like performance isn't like, it's going to change the behavior of the software, make it faster, make it, you know, less likely to break in some way, or fix a bug. And like in that case for David Parker's post, he was like trying to fix a bug. So it is worth refactoring if it's going to fix a bug, but then you have to like make this judgment call. One of the reasons we don't want to refactor, it should be said, is that it introduces bugs, and we think it's better and perfect and we avoid bugs, but especially software that's been in place for many, many years. And in general, like, that's used on a bunch of websites that are all running different things on different servers, doing different stuff. Like, anytime you refactor, you introduce a bug. And like one example I wish I had the code to share on screen, but there was like a, you know, in October, they do Hacktoberfest and people contribute to GitHub repos. And someone did a code change where we had like 4 lines of code that was pretty verbose. It was like a little overly verbose. It said, hey, if this variable, you know, is true, return true, else return false. And so hopefully that's an easy enough coding example to keep in your head. If this thing, return true, else return false, 4 lines. And he changed it. He's like, hey, it's much more succinct to just return the variable. If the variable's true, it's going to return true. If the variable's false, it's going to return false. Cool. Hey, it's like a change. It doesn't really change anything. It makes the code a little neater. Let's ship that. And it makes this person feel good that they contributed to open source, and maybe like they're more likely to come around and get involved. That little bit of change broke a bunch of stuff, because it turns out that, like, and this is like, you get into the weeds, null and false. Null is like a programming term. It means like nothing, which is kind of, they call it falsy. It's kind of like false. And that little change in, like, it used to be 4 lines, like if the falsy thing returned false, made sure that we always return false. But when you're just returning the variable, when it's null, it would return null. And this other code's expecting exactly false and doesn't treat null like false. And it all breaks, right? So it's like, oh, even like a 1-line change that seems like really mundane and simple and obvious and couldn't possibly break anything, like, was such a big fix that we had to push it out, and a point released immediately. It was like breaking, like, I forget the specifics of it, but like something really big that all of our sites rely on. And we're like, oh, you can't take anything for granted. And I have another motto. It's like, nothing is easy, right? So it's always like, oh, this is easy, obvious. I try to say straightforward, because that's it. Like, mentally, it's straightforward that like this 1 line is the same as this 4 lines, but you're like, that's not necessarily true. So we learned that lesson over and over and over again. Honestly, we learned that lesson before we even started doing WordPress work. When we had a wine website, we spent a year refactoring it. And then it was like, it didn't matter. It was like, oh, we're on the new stuff. There's new stuff, and we're not on the new stuff. We feel the same way we did last year. And it's like, we didn't actually do anything. We just made like the underlying code a little bit prettier, and we didn't actually do anything. So excuse me. So that's, refactoring and development is something that comes up, and we're like, how do we make sure it's purposeful? We always make sure that when we refactor, we're doing this because it's going to enable us to code something that we want to code as a feature or a benefit for our users and our end users, and to make the software better. Or if we're fixing a bug, and then we have to make a judgment call, like, is the refactor going to lead to less bugs or more bugs, in a sense, and that can be a judgment call.
Ryan added a comment to your code is poetry, and they said it feels a lot like this sometimes, and wrote a silent whisper, lines of logic gently laid, then the code just breaks.
Yeah. That was haiku too. That's great. Yeah.
Oh, AI wrote that. It wasn't Ryan, but they admitted that it was AI. But I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Sometimes it just breaks. And okay, we could get into the weeds on it's good to like have code that's readable or feels good, but also people have different opinions of what readable means or beautiful means or good means. But we sell an open source product, and we give away an open source product. People interact with the code, and so the code is the product. So we do think about it. Like there is a benefit to having cleaner code that's easier to understand, that's using the systems and patterns and tools that people are familiar with, is beneficial. That said, there's downsides, and we have to weigh the upsides and downsides whenever we're doing something. Yeah. And then in the greater, like, how do we decide what is a feature that we want to release and make sure that we're working on the stuff that's important and that our customers want? The process that we use is Shape Up. There's a book by the folks from Basecamp called Shape Up, and we use a modified version of that. I don't know if we have good links, but I've blogged about it and tweeted about it.
I think we have something on the Stranger Studios site. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, like some of the different ways that we modified their book, or not their book, but the system. Excuse me, dry throat. And but roughly what Shape Up is at a high level, every quarter we get together, and we just had a meeting yesterday that was pretty intense. We come up with the ideas. It's like a sheet of like 70 things, and we talk through that in a 3-hour meeting, and we say which of these ideas is worth pitching. We pitch the ideas, which means write a document. There's like 5 sections, like what is the objective or the problem we're fixing? What's the opportunity that we're making better? What does the solution roughly look like? We call them rabbit holes. It's like those things that like, this is going to take a while to figure out. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's that nothing is easy, but we can kind of anticipate some issues. And then we have no-goes, which are like guardrails, where it's like, I know it seems like it'd be nice to try this other method, or this, there's kind of a slippery slope. After you do this, you're going to want to do this next thing, but don't focus on that now. Just focus on this. So we write up this document, and then we have a meeting like we did yesterday where, the management team here pitches, and we had like 30 or so of these pitches. Maybe not that many, like 20 some. And we all read them before.
I mean, we've probably had 30 at one point, but yeah, we bring a lot to the table.
And we all do our homework, and we read and we comment, and then we get like maybe 4 or 5 minutes per pitch. Like, hey, is this thing shaped? Do we understand the thing we're doing? Is this something we really want to do? And is now the right time to do it? So that's an awesome system. I encourage folks to read that book, read how we've altered it for like smaller teams that ship open source software. Is kind of like some of the changes we made, support those 2 aspects of the work that we do versus how Basecamp works. And it kind of like, one of the main reasons we like that system and it appeals to us is that it makes sure that every quarter we're working on what we feel is the most important things. And the alternative to this is, what can typically happen is folks like, hey, it'd be really cool is if we build like this new gateway integration. And then you build it and you're like, hey, we built this thing, but we didn't ship it. We ran into some issues. It was really hard. It took longer than we thought it did. We ran out of time. And then you have to you estimated 6 weeks, and like, let's give it another 6 weeks. Like, cause I built this thing, we should ship it. And you spend another 6 weeks on it. And then maybe you do or don't ship it. Sometimes we build things that aren't working out. And like Shape Up circumvents that, because it has another piece called like the appetite. It's like, I'm willing right now to spend 6 weeks on this. And then when you get to 6 weeks and you don't ship, it's like, okay, well, now you have to be done and you have to pitch it again. And sometimes when you pitch it again, the answer isn't, yeah, we should keep doing, we should ship the thing we have. We should keep doing what we were doing. It should be like, actually, like, we learned something building that gateway integration. It's really complicated and difficult, and the gateway stinks, and they don't answer our emails. We're not going to build that integration. So like that could be the case. Or it's like, hey, we're shifting focus. We thought that was important, but this other thing is more important. And so it kind of helps us reset every quarter. We're working on what we think is most important. And, the reason that Shape Up appeals to us is, because of this core value of doing purposeful work. Yeah. And what that's called when you get stuck in thinking that because you've done some work in the past, you should keep doing that work. That's called the sunk cost fallacy. So it's like, I bought, and if you buy tickets to a concert and then you they're like $500 each and the concert comes, but there's something else you want to do instead, your friend's wedding. And you're like, but like I bought the tickets. It's like, what would, 10 years from now, would you have rather gone to your friend's wedding or a concert, even if it was pretty nice, maybe at $500 a ticket? It's like, it's like sunk costs. Like you lost that money.
Am I still their friend after 10 years?
Hopefully. Yeah. So the same thing happens in products. It's like, just because you've done a lot of work up to this point doesn't mean that you should keep, continue on that work. Another way this comes up, so kind of like an alternative or to how we do things that thinking about purposeful work helps us avoid, is because we build a software product with many, many competitors. And sometimes people have ideas. They're like, hey, our competitor has this new feature. It looks like people like it. We should do that too. Or like they're doing this marketing. They're making this kind of video. They're posting this kind of blog content. They just hired this and that, I don't know. They integrate with this thing. We should integrate with that thing. And some of our competitors are kind of more successful in terms of revenue, or a few of them, have like more users. But we, whenever we see that, instead of like, oh yeah, let's copy what the competitor is doing, we're like, well, why are they doing that? Does that same why apply to us and our values and what we're trying to do? Like, it's worth considering these things. Like, we shouldn't ignore what the competition is doing, but we shouldn't just accept that it's good just because they did it, or that it applies to our software and our team and our product and our users. When we dig into it, we often find like, oh, sure, like they have a bunch of users, they do this thing, it seems like they're getting a lot of traffic, but that's the type of user we don't really serve that well. Like, cool, let them have that use case. Our use cases are over here. Or it's kind of like, some nature, and there's a even better way to do it, in our system, because we're doing this other thing over here. So, I think we don't get locked into thinking like features are kind of like these like collectibles, and it's just like, I need to have all the features, and they have a feature, we should have a feature. When we do that kind of analysis, you have to kind of run it through this filter and like literally shape up. It's kind of like when you sit down to write the pitch, you can't just say like, we should do this because WooCommerce is doing it. And we're like, that's great. There's a lot of smart people over there, but why do you think WooCommerce is doing it? Do we have the same opportunity or problem? We should do it too. Sometimes, yes, it's like kind of like, yeah, this is pretty obvious, and they kind of already figured it out. That's pretty cool. We can learn from their open source code. And sometimes we're like, we shouldn't do that, or we should do it differently.
I like Paul's comment.
Yeah.
Getting unstuck for me is talking to a duck. I have a rubber duck on my desk. I explain things so the duck can understand. It forces me to think through every detail and slow down. I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
We're going to ship everybody a rubber duck in the team.
Rubber ducking. Yeah, like a little nugget. We should have little rubber nuggets to rubber duck with. I like that idea. There's like, yeah, it's a popular thing in programming, and it comes up in other areas of life. It's like rubber ducking. Sometimes if you put the question in the words, you answer your own question. You're like, if I just go to the task of, I go to another developer and I'm like, can I run this by you and see if it makes sense? So by the time I'm done explaining it, I was like, I actually just figured out like what the answer to my question. And actually AI tools are like amazing for this now. You don't have to bug another human being. You can kind of like, you can even prompt ChatGPT like, hey, can I rubber duck with you for a little bit? Let me explain something. Yeah.
We're going to make nuggets. Great. And send nuggets to the team.
Rubber nuggets.
Rubber nuggets.
So I have a couple of hacks. When we think about purposeful work, it feels kind of heavy. Like, and it is. We're like, purposeful work means like keeping track of the goals of our business. We want to help people get paid so that they can pursue their lives and dreams. We have this mission of creating like the best open source membership and payments software in the world. And it's like, hey, are we still serving our mission by doing this work? You're like, yeah, it's like pretty heavy. Like, I just want to ship something. But there's a couple like hacks or mindsets or rules of thumb that can help you make quicker decisions. Like if you, I'll give examples, but these two, like a thing to remember is always be learning. And if you're always learning, it's purposeful work. So sometimes you're like, should I really try to run these ads? Should I really write this code? Should I really look into this product to maybe, integrate with and share with their team? Should I really take this phone call with a customer? It seems like maybe they're not a good fit. Should I, all these things, you're like, well, if you're going to learn in the process, cool. It's good. It wasn't wasted time. And especially if it's like 1 hour or 1 day, people are kind of like, should I spend a day on this? I'm always like, yeah. It's like in my mind, like you're going to learn something from it. So go ahead, spend a day working on something. So if you keep that in mind, and this comes up a lot in like marketing experimentation, because it can feel like there's a lot of unknown. You're like, it seems like people want this content. We have an answer. Let's write it up and publish it to the world and send an email. And then it's like crickets. It's like, do they know that I just gave them like the awesomest blog post ever? Do they know how good this like episode of Coding with Sam was? People need to know. Let's email them again. But it's kind of like, hey, if you learn in the process, it's still worth it. Like the next time you do the same thing, the next time you write something, you're going to be like building up on it. And so that always helps tip the scale. If you're kind of like 50-50, like, I don't know if this is really purposeful. It's like, I'm going to learn something, or even if I learn at the end, like I said, like integrating with that gateway, maybe we shouldn't have wasted 6 weeks, but it was like, we learned that gateway is not easy to work with or whatever. And like, this is a theoretical example, but it actually applies to gateways sometimes. So it's like, we learned something. And so another version of that, is this idea of like, if we help even one person, this is worth doing. So we think of this sometimes, writing a blog post, how to fix this issue, how to think about this thing, to make this documentation a little bit clearer, write a code gist sometimes, and we have to be careful code gists. I'll get to kind of like the flip side of writing code gists, but like, should we write this customization? We encourage customization of our software. So it's like, let's help someone write this. If we're going to help even one customer, like they said they have a need, we're like, people ask me, should I take the time to do this? Cause I'm only helping one person. And it's like, just one person, great, awesome, do it. So we kind of try to have that mindset. Like, I just published a video on YouTube. It has 10 views. I'm like comparing it to Mr. Beast, and I don't feel like I have worth. And you're like you helped 10 people watch that and got helped. Like, if you really think about it, because one person isn't usually one person. That's why it's even better. It's like, there's someone else like that out there, other people we're going to find them. They're going to find the content and benefit from it. But even 1, 10, 100 people is a lot of people. Like, if you had 100 people in a room, we have add-ons that have like 20,000 users, and then there's one that has like 300 people. It's like, if you got all 300 of those people in an auditorium, it'd be like a lot of people. It'd be like a whole ass conference. And so like, when we're thinking about, building things or communicating with them, and it's like, it's only 300 people. Yeah, that's a lot of people. We don't want to upset them. Let's help them. And Sam, I know we've been talking about this. So there's this concept of a content flywheel related to this, if you can help even just one person. And it runs kind of like this. So if you should be talking to your customers. This is purposeful work, because you're always going to be learning. Kind of understanding your customer better is almost always useful in business. You can assume you know what they want, but actually talking to them, you'll learn what they want. Or prospective customers and things like that, doing sales calls. So in the process of a sales call, they'll ask questions. And because we have so much good content marketing, they're like, do you know if it's possible to do this? So like, not only is it possible, we wrote an add-on and we have documentation, and Sam did a video. Let me send you the link. Like, it explains exactly this thing that you're trying to do. Oh my God, cool. What about this thing? You're like, we don't have a blog post about that. I'll riff, you can hire a developer, maybe. I'll talk to the dev team. And in the back of your mind, you're like, well, one customer had this question about like, is it possible to connect Paid Memberships Pro to this new service that we haven't heard about yet? And it's like, hey, let's dig into it. We're going to help at least this one customer. If they haven't bought yet, like, it's super, like impactful and feels good. If they like, throw you a curveball, and then you're like, hey, I went back and I wrote like a whole blog post, recorded a video, made some content, found the answer for you. Here's the answer. And they're like, wow, I was like, you did that for me. Like that. So a lot of those people are going to convert. They're like, I'm dealing with real humans that care about my problem, and they deliver. I trust them now, and I'm ready to buy their other software content and support. And you get content, and you make that content. And if this one person needed it, it's very likely a bunch of other people needed it. And you should keep track of your time, prioritize, there's more people using PayPal and Stripe than using like maybe like a, fourth tier gateway. Maybe this person wants to do something that's like bending the purpose of Paid Memberships Pro, and like there's other solutions that are better, so just redirect them to use something else. But in general, talk to customers, try to give them links to your content to answer their questions. When they throw you a zinger, they're like, you don't have an answer for that yet, answer it in public, in a blog post, a LinkedIn post, a YouTube video, social media video, all of the above. Email it to them and say, hey, I created this for you. They're gonna be like, wow, very likely to convert to a customer. And then that content is going to get other people into your queue. So that's this flywheel built around the concept of like, even just helping one person usually kind of works out and it grows. And I remember we had, before Sam joined a while ago, there was it was back in like 2017 or so, maybe 18, someone who was working in marketing here was looking at like the history of our blog posts, and they were like, oh my God, what did you guys do in 2015 and 16? You published like 300 blog posts a year. And it's like, Kim and I were running the flywheel. We talked to customers. They needed something. We wrote the blog post the next day and shipped it. And it's hard, it's work, but like that work like built the, the core of like our content marketing. And it's why when you ask ChatGPT, can you do this with a membership plugin? It's kind of likely to say Paid Memberships Pro. Yeah, so there's a couple tips, how we think about purposeful work and marketing. And if there's other questions or anything,
not right now.
We can get to those. It's like interstitial video, like and subscribe. Join the Slack community, paidmembershipspro.com/Slack.
I can drop a link to that too.
Yeah, use our stuff. So purposeful work and support. So we paidmembershipspro.com/support. If you're building a membership site with Paid Memberships Pro or considering it and you're stuck, you're rubber ducking and maybe it worked or it didn't work. You want to get unstuck, pay for our support product, and our team of folks will help you. And so in the course of doing that work, we have like a support queue, and there's an idea of like how long you should spend on a ticket. And we try to go what we call like above and beyond what's typical. So when especially our paid support in particular, when they ask a question and it's kind of, even if it's like, I'm having an issue with my host, I'm having an issue with this other plugin, I'm having an issue, like I have a weird specific use case. I'm the only one in the world that's using Paid Memberships Pro in this way. And I wrote custom code. How do I fix it? We don't try to just reply really quickly like, wow, good luck with that. It seems like you're in, like, I don't know. Hey, we'll just like answer our own documentation and stuff. We go like further. We like take responsibility for it. I mean, like we have smart people on the team that are able to look at code for other plugins and kind of help out. And so we go above and beyond to answer folks' questions. That said, some folks are doing very complicated things, or even just like new things, that are a little different and just time intensive. And so we have internal rules for like, hey, try not to take longer than this. If you take longer than 15 minutes or an hour for a certain reply, you have to answer these questions first to make sure that you're doing purposeful work. So our support team is not outsourced WordPress development. It's support on using Paid Memberships Pro. And we do spend a lot of time, but then at a certain point, you're like, oh, like they're coming back to me with every question, and they're just kind of like getting free work from us. So on the edges of that, there's these issues like, hey, they need some custom code. We have to ask, is this purposeful work to, write this custom code for this user? And some of the questions we ask are like, are there other people who potentially might have this issue? One that's kind of hard to get at, like, is this custom code like likely to be like once and done and it's the only thing that's needed and then they move on? It's like simple, or is this like the beginning of something complicated? So sometimes it's like, I don't know. It's hey, like the default excerpt link, my excerpts are too long. They're automatically generated. I wish they were shorter. And we're like, oh yeah, there's a filter in WordPress that we respect. you say filter, it's not 200 words or whatever the default is, use 100 words. It's half as long. You can change that number. Wow, cool. Answers my question. They're like very unlikely to like have a follow-up. Sometimes we had a sponsored members add-on before our group accounts add-on. And part of that transition was we really realized like, hey, we want to serve these customers with a group accounts add-on, and the sponsored members add-on had like other use cases. And some of them we said, we're not going to support this anymore. And some of them kind of got transitioned to the group accounts. But one case where like Paid Memberships Pro is not an amazing solution, and honestly, I don't really know of others that are, but we had this type of user that was like, it's funny because I started talking about Montessori school and they run a summer school, but like summer school programs. And so, hey, I need some custom code to accept like the children's emails at checkout instead of later. Like the process was you sign up as a parent and then you can kind of add your kids later. But what if I wanted one screen, add the kids' information right at checkout? And we actually coded that and built it into the plugin. And it's like, cool, here's like some customization. Now you can accept the children's information at checkout. And then the next question from the same customer is like, okay, cool. What about like t-shirt size? There's this information, like every kid gets a t-shirt, of course, at my school. So we need to know the t-shirt. And they're like, oh, like, I guess here's about how you would do it. They're like, it doesn't just do it. And it's like, no, like we just got name and email. That's the stuff that was there before. Like, and like, oh, like we're kind of slowly building this thing that's really tough, by the way, like the summer school management software. And there's always questions like, oh, I have 3 kids, but I'm only sending 2 at a time. I want a refund. What if my kid is sick and they don't go? What if, oh, like, I know I said add the email to checkout, but some kids don't have emails. Parents are really protective, and all this, whatever. It's like, of course the kids don't have emails. Like, so it got, kind of crazy. So we want to avoid going into that situation where we're kind of like co-developing something. And the team gets trained to like recognize like, hey, this is, slow down. This is complicated. Have you thought about this? Well, like there's a workaround. Can you simplify it? Try to, handhold folks through making like good decisions that will make them more likely to be able to solve their problems with software. But that's like our support team has these, we have like very clear SOPs around like when we're doing extra work, let's make sure this is purposeful work and we're not just leading the customer down a path where they're going to have to end up paying a lot for like custom development that maybe they don't even need. There's kind of like there's a short one that this is a tip that people can take away. So if you're doing some kind of support that has either like custom development code like we do in plugins, or there's some version of that, like if you're doing consulting or building stuff and the customer will ask for something, I'll talk about code, but see if you can map this to your own business. I think it has analogies. So the customer's like, hey, I need to, accept t-shirt sizes at checkout. We like slow down and ask them questions like, why do you need to do that? What have you tried? Can you specifically explain to me, like in English, what you mean? Another version is like prorating. So people say, I need to prorate the prices. And you're like, what do you mean by prorate? Like, so for example, give me examples. If someone paid this and they bought here and someone paid this and bought here, what do you want them to get charged? Because they think prorate is like, this is like this easy thing. Everyone knows what it is. There's like one calculation for it. And just click the prorate button. What are you waiting for? It's like, no, like give it a stab of like writing that out in English. And then as people write it out in English, and we have this like phrase too, we say like, if you can't write out in English how you come up with a price at checkout, you're not going to be able to explain it to your customer. And they're not going to know why they're getting charged $23.45. And so like, you need to be able to explain in English. And actually, oftentimes, if you give people this constraint, they simplify the product, which is good. It's like, they might have had an idea. I have to have my invite system or my proration or my t-shirt size calculation, like exactly how I sort of feel like I envision it in my head. But you're like, if sometimes we push back and it's like, there's a simpler solution, which is like, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes you can't be simple, but simple is good for a lot of reasons. Like, and number one, like you can explain it to the customer. Here's why you're getting charged this amount. It's a simple calculation. So we don't just write the custom code right away. We push back with these questions. We shoot for like a simpler situation. We try to get them to put it into words. Then we're like, okay, well, they're sure this is what they want. They're able to explain it in English. And then when we write the code, we're not going to write code and they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant this other thing. Or like, of course, there's t-shirt sizes you didn't know about. There's these 5 other things I didn't mention that we also have to do. And so it's like, force people to write us the specs in English before we start writing code saves us time and helps us do purposeful work for them. And kind of, we challenge these assumptions around, the custom code that they have to do.
Brian has a question, kind of going back to not pushing something out that was built. Brian said, I'd love to hear more about a time when you guys weren't going to ship something you've spent a lot of time on. How did those conversations go? How do you overcome the sunken cost fallacy?
Man, there's so many.
I think every conversation is different too.
Yeah. I mean, so I talked a little bit about gateways. That's come up. We're sitting on like 3 or 4 gateway integrations that we're not shipping, or they're in various forms of beta, and we're struggling internally. Like, we should potentially refactor our whole plugin so that it's easier to use multiple gateways, or should we just lean into PayPal and Stripe and make sure it works with both of those? And honestly, like, the business relations with those 2 companies is strenuous to me. So it's like, even those, so it makes me want to like not necessarily, we're struggling as a company. Like, I don't necessarily just want to like be kind of beholden to those 2 companies by only integrating with them in a sense. So let's give our customers options as well. But then, like, giving people options means that we can't integrate as deeply or as kind of fluidly with, the gateway. It's challenging to write one integration that works with a bunch of gateways. So that's present of mind for us. And it's tough. It's funny, like, it's open source software, so we give it away for free. So we kind of have a little bit of an out that doesn't feel good. So we've given some of those gateways to, like, here, like, you want to use this on your site, you can. It kind of works. It has these things that we were struggling with. Maybe that doesn't apply to your site. You're like, oh, cool. I actually wasn't doing trials anyway, so it's okay. The trials are broken. I'll use the thing. And it's like, there's some of these like edge cases that only happen to release it to a bunch of people. And then it's like, hey, maybe you'll pay a developer to maintain it, so at least it works and you can use it. That's usually a trap. 2 or 3 years later, they're kind of like, we're having this through authorize.net. We deprecated that gateway because I'm pretty sure, still don't support this secure customer authorization, which is when you check out, even folks, it started overseas, which is kind of one of the reasons American companies have been able to ignore it for a bit. But sometimes when you use your credit card, about 10% of the time, it'll be like, hey, is it really you? Can I send you a text message to confirm? And you probably notice this when you're checking out and almost don't even realize, because like Stripe, Keep, and Venmo and PayPal, they kind of all operate this way anyway. They're like, I got your credit card. Don't bother. I'll just send you a text message or whatever. But 10% of checkouts require the secure customer authorization, and authorize.net doesn't support it at the API level. And so those charges just fail. It's like, hey, sorry, like, you put in your real credit card information. It's like, nah, it doesn't work, because the credit card said, wait, can I double check? And then authorize.net and or us, our integration doesn't have a way to handle it. So it's like, I guess try another card. So it's like, we're not going to support a gateway where like 10% of the transactions fail. They don't support it themselves. This is Visa's. I've been on this rant, I think, on another open office hours. It's literally one of the top 10 biggest companies in the world, and they can't like support this stuff. So it's like, why should I build on it? Like, I'm going to move on with my life and support these companies that are building better software. Okay, rant about gateways over. There's another kind of fun one in the past where famously Paid Memberships Pro version 2.0 was going to support what we called like multiple memberships per user. And we talked it up. It was on a public roadmap. There was like multiple posts about it. We kept telling people that we were almost there. We were working on it. And we were building it. We built some on one level. It's kind of an easy change. There's a database table that says, hey, only let people have 1 membership level at a time. And you go, oh no, let them have 2. Like, okay, cool. Now I can have multiple entries in this table. The same user can have multiple membership levels in this table. And you're like, cool, did it, ship it. But like, no, once you break that assumption that like a user can have multiple memberships, it trickles, everything kind of breaks. And even in the core plugin, I think we were so heads down on the core plugin. We're like, we're still going to ship 2.0. We thought it'd take 3 months. This is before shape up, by the way. We would have cut the cord earlier if we had shape up at the time. Then it was like the end of the year, like, we'll ship it next year. And we spent like 6 months or almost a year building it. And then we kind of finished we learned in the process, it works in core. but all our add-ons break, and most people use add-ons. So it's like, we can't ship it this way. It's going to, you know, break. And we wrote up like a really good like workarounds that like most cases, you don't actually need this thing. You think you need multiple memberships per user. And we sat with that for like 2-3 years, that we didn't support multiple memberships per user. Like if you know, I checked out for the main level, and I also bought like a course level, and they're both PMPro membership levels. Anyway, fast forward 3.0, we fixed it. It was like 6 or 7 years later. That 3.0 update, we talked about before. I think like the first commit was like 5 years before we released 3.0. So it's like, and we, through Shape Up, we're able to map out like every quarter, like we're doing some work that's making us closer towards the 3.0, which included multiple memberships per user and a bunch of other kind of related checkout improvements. And the subscriptions table fixes this stuff. And so, yeah, so that was like, we thought we'd ship it. We realized we didn't. We had to eat poop and like be like, you know what we said, and probably like once a week, once a month, someone be like, didn't you say this would be ready? I thought you said this. And we're like, no, actually you have to do one of these workarounds. Sorry. And we operated that way for a while until we could just literally do the work that, you know, and it wasn't always purposeful. Like it was tough. Like people thought they wanted it for certain things, and it's super useful. We use multiple memberships per user, and now that it works and it's, you know, we did all the work, you can build really cool stuff on top of it. It's neat. And there's even more now that we have it released. We're thinking like these things called like group levels, or like level groups rather. It's like, oh, like the level groups are really just there to facilitate multiple memberships per level, and the rules around like, if I check out for this level, is that like an upgrade from another level, or am I allowed to have multiple course levels within this group? But now we have these group levels, and there's all kinds of like, hey, let's restrict by level group. Let's send emails to only people in this level group. Let's, you know, think about the level group in this other context, you know. It's kind of exciting. So we're building on that, but we can use Shape Up to figure out, you know, hey, is this improvement part of it?
It'd be interesting to track when we did our first PR for the upcoming 4.0. Like we don't even have a roadmap of to like when we're ready to release that yet. But I mean, we've already, since even 3.0, we started talking about what's going in 4.0. So
yeah, we build these docs.
Track it.
Yeah, and we have a doc we need to create that we did for 3.0, where it's kind of, here's the wish list of features. Also, when we go like 3.0, 4.0, the major release means that we potentially can break backwards compatibility. So we try not to, and always, and we won't do it if, you know, we need to. That's like a value that we have that also like WordPress kind of has, like, let's, you know, not break things if we don't have to. But this is the opportunity. There's some things like we really want to improve how email templates work. We really want to improve these aspects of checking out, and it potentially is going to break some things for some people. So they have to like reconfigure something or look at it again, and I don't know. We try to make it as smooth as possible. And so you're only doing that one at a time. But look at, so we're kind of in the process now of like the wish list of like, I want to refactor this thing. It might break some stuff, but it sets the stage for these feature improvements and performance gains that we're working towards. So let's get in 4.0 and just other features we're working on. Is it like a 3.9 or is it a 4.0 or a 4.1 type feature? It's pretty fun. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm sure like once 4.0 goes out, there'll be some kind of, there's a lot of work on splitting up the checkout flow. So this is like a funny thing. When we first launched PayMerchants Pro, it was a feature that checkout happens on one page and one gateway. Because at the time it was like it was confusing. Like web pages took a long time to load. It was like if you load under 10 seconds, that's pretty good. So if you have a separate page for each process of the checkout, you're slowing down the checkout. So it's like one form, one load, let's go. How many sites need multiple membership levels? There's no Apple Pay or Google Pay back then, or multiple checkout options. Anyway, fast forward now, it's like we deal with spam and there's multiple checkout options that all make sense, and people want to adjust the checkout process. It's important to get like a confirmation before you submit. So we're kind of like re-architecting the flow of checkout. And some of that stuff, and this was true of 2.0, even the multiple memberships per user, and the 3.0, we kind of quietly ship stuff behind the scenes that lays the groundwork, and it doesn't break anything. So we can push it out early and make sure like it's in as many versions of PMPro as possible when they upgrade. And then there's other aspects where like this code, but we're not going to ship it yet. So it sits on a branch, for a while, and then gets, merged in before the 4.0 release. No, it's fine. Okay. You guys got me talking about development. I could talk about it forever. It's purposeful work. How do we do the work? I guess I had a couple topics around like at the business level, figuring out like, what to do. So not just like the product or the coding, but how do you decide what aspect of the business to be working on at any one point, and what's purposeful work? And there's some aspect of this, I think it's advice to CEOs and people running businesses that it's important to become comfortable with not doing things. And in some ways, the thing that got you there is not the thing that's going to get you to the next level. Like we're very typically entrepreneurs running businesses are like A-type, and they get all the things done and they check all the boxes and they're on top of things. And it is true that like the owner of the business is like the one that's like cleaning the bathrooms. Like when stuff slips through, my favorite is lawyers. It's like, what do you hire lawyers for? You hire lawyers to like not do it so that you can research, weird 1970s treaties to figure out the right way to do it, and then educate the lawyer what they're supposed to be doing. And then anyway, so it's like, yeah, all of the things you have to do, but it's important then as the business grows, you're like, you can't possibly do all the things. You can't even possibly hire people to do all the things, and you have to let some things go. But it's like, what do you focus on? And even if like stuff isn't falling apart, it's kind of like, well, we could try to improve, in the marketing sense, you have a sales funnel, and it's like, well, I could get more people into the top of the funnel, or I could help people move through the funnel, or I could focus on the bottom of the funnel and do conversions. And there's other aspects. I should be better at hiring. I should be better at managing. I should run the shape up better. Do we need to do product or market? Like what should you as the owner and operator of the business focus on? And there's a term for this that's important, and there's some good books it's called theory of constraints. And it's this idea that, at any given time, all these random things you could be working on, there's one that has the most impact on the business. So if you do simplify it into like a sales checkout or a sales funnel, there's getting more traffic, qualifying the traffic, and then, maybe getting a free sign up, and then converting them to a paid user. And if you analyze this and do the math, the answer would be different for everyone. It's like, if you're already getting a lot of traffic and a lot of them are converting to free, but only a few of them are converting to paid, probably working on the conversion to paid is the thing that you should work on the most. If you're converting like 80%, a 50% improvement in converting is going to move the needle a little bit, but what will really move the needle is you're converting really well, put more traffic in the funnel. Or maybe you're getting a lot of traffic, but it's not qualifying. It's not becoming a free user or sticking around, getting like the good offer. You should do that. And if you have like good analytics of this, and it's hard these days, Google Analytics literally like as a thing, like kind of is broken a little bit right now. It's not tracking super useful, and similar tools. That's a thing that is going in our ideas and our pitches is like, we have to solve this problem for us using PMPro. Let's solve this problem for our customers to like visualize and analyze their sales funnels, which is a hard challenge, but it's something that, it's worth doing. But if you do it, if you actually have decent numbers, it's just math. You're like, I wish I had a whiteboard. I'd write numbers like Alex or Mosey. And it's kind of like, if your conversion rate is 10% and you can double it to 20%, that's literally going to double your revenue. But if your conversion rate is only 10%, like doubling your traffic may be a harder thing to do than doubling your conversion rate. It depends. You have to do this analysis. It's kind of like do math. Another aspect where we do math like that is like, we're working on a PMPro hosting product. So we're in this mindset of like, we're a platform. We used to try to be the best membership plugin for WordPress, and like just do memberships, just do checkout, let the other plugins do their thing. Let's integrate with all this stuff. Let's be nice partners and open source. For a bunch of reasons, that's fallen apart. So like the other businesses don't want to be nice and partner and build open source software. So like they're like, they'll make a version of an integration and charge for it when we have a free integration. And it's like, well, wait, what do we do? Like, or it used to be a plugin that did one thing and we would recommend it, but now it's like slowly becoming a membership plugin that competes, or even just slowly becoming a like whatever plugin that doesn't make sense for membership sites. And it's like, shoot, like that used to be like a really good like front end login thing, but now it does this other stuff. Or like that used to be good for avatars, but now it does all this other stuff that we don't need. That used to be like a really good 2-factor plugin. Now it's like a whole security, really simple SSL. Used to fix this one issue with SSL. Now it sells, I don't know what it sells, a lot of stuff. It sells like 20 things besides the thing it does. And so but then also the customer like likes us, we're doing a good job, but also just wants to get served from one place, is like, I want the PMPro version of this. And we've been slowly kind of now building out, our part of the platform, more and more. We're responsible for it, but also we're dialed in, like we're actually serving you as a membership site owner. Other people are serving these other types of sites that don't, necessarily map to what you're doing. So we're going to do the best job, and we're taking that seriously. And we built plugins on top of WordPress, but now we're kind of like, there's these other services. There's video hosting, there's kind of email sending, and there's hosting your own website. And that's another thing where we do the math and we're like, well, like 25% of people who use PMPro check a box saying that they have video on their site, but 100% of people who use PMPro have a website that has to be hosted somewhere. So when we're doing the work to host our own website, in an optimal way for Paid Memberships Pro, we have to do that work anyway. Let's do purposeful work. Let's share how we do it. And this is what I'm working on right now is we're nailing down our template and our hosting stack, and we're just going to give it away. We're just do what we do. It's Cloudflare, DigitalOcean, Apache, not Nginx. Apache is better. Like, and we can nerd out about that. It's funny. Like it came in again, like I'm like 7 years ago, I thought Apache was better. Someone new on the team is like, are you sure? And it's like, run the test. Here you go. Set up both, run the test. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. If I'm serving static images in HTML, Nginx is really good at that. If I'm running a membership site where people are logging in and checking out and doing transactional stuff, it's like 5% slower at sending images and static stuff. It's like twice as fast at doing that transactional stuff. And it's kind of like, has easier to control and configure and things like that. Cool. Apache ones. Anyway, so we're doing all this nerdy stuff to figure out the best tech stack. We host our own website on it. Let's tell people how it works. We have really good support. We're doing your hosting support sometimes anyway. I don't know what percentage. I'm sure you people are opening support tickets at your hosts, but our members are also opening hosting support tickets in our support system. And like I said, we go above and beyond. We're like, all right, let's figure out how you can talk to your host. What's the right magic words to ask your host to get them to configure this thing for you? And we're like, we're doing this anyway. Let's do it for them. So now we're excited. Like we're building like a hosting platform. We're going to make it as simple as possible to host one site that's a membership site on WordPress and PHP and Paid Memberships Pro. And we're going to tell you how to do it. But if you just want to pay us some money to manage it for you, then we'll manage it for you. And like, we're excited to be working on that. It feels like purposeful work. And we came about to it from math. Like we're like, if we do the math, all of our customers spend this much money on hosting. So that's like a worthy thing to build. I think we can build a better version. So, and it'll be one option. It'll still be out. Yeah, go ahead.
We are looking for alpha users of this hosting. And so if you're interested, you can reach out to us and we can qualify you, make sure it's a good fit, and talk about being an alpha for the new hosting.
Yeah, and we're open to both, long-standing sites that need to be migrated. We'll give you white glove migration services. And what we've done is we'll set up a staging version of your site that won't interfere with your site. We know how to set up staging sites for Paid Memberships Pro sites. There's a blog post about how to do that, but we just know how to do it. And then we'll test it and say, hey, show that it's more performant than how you're hosting now or some of the other benefits. And then you can confidently flip the switch with us and we'll move your site to our setup. Or if you have a brand new website, we're open to some of those as well for the alpha period. Like we'll set up a perfect demo PMPro Pro site that runs blazing fast and is sitting on good hardware. And we'll get to like our value of transparency and open source. So we make open source code and we give it away for free, but that same value is why we're going to build this tech stack and we're going to just tell you how to do it. We're not going to hide it. And it's the reason that we're choosing the tech stack that we choose. We're using a lot of website components are open source, but some aren't. And we're making sure we choose open source versions when it makes sense. But then also we're not using those in an opaque way that you don't understand. We're using it in a transparent way. We're like, here's how our caching layer is set up. So if that doesn't work for your site for some reason, we can even give you some controls to manage it yourself. Here's how, the decisions we're making in like the database configuration, stuff like that. So if you are like a super savvy user and you're like, I know my database has, is read more than written. And so if you tweak it in certain ways, it's going to perform better for reading and perform slightly worse for writing. And I'm okay with that. You'd be like, okay, cool. On your box, you can kind of change that thing. But you know how it's configured and you can make those changes. And we're building like monolithic hosting that is, it's a virtual server at DigitalOcean now, but it has 2 CPU and 4 gigabytes or more if you need it. And like, you have that much processing power. And we're not going to try to build a host that squeezes, tries to get the cheapest possible, spend the least amount on hosting, and kind of almost like hide how much of the CPU you're using and say like, we'll support how many views you have. And like, don't worry about the memory. You're like, no, like literally underlying on the box is memory and it runs out for certain things. And if you need more memory, we'll buy more memory and we'll kind of forward the bill on to you. And that's confusing. Like we should try it. Some people don't want to think about that. So we like got to handhold them through, like, you shouldn't have to think about memory in some cases, but it's like people are doing, like running a membership website is like a complicated thing sometimes. And it's like, if you have a lot of users and when you download and export, you get an out of memory error. We're not going to like push back and be like, maybe you should use a different plugin or you should do that differently. We're going to like, be like, oh no, let's help you figure this out, how to do this. And do you need more hardware? Is there a fix in the configuration? Or is this something PMPro Pro should do? And that's what's also exciting about this. So that's like a little bit of the pitch, like let us host your website for you. But what's really cool is once we start hosting like a few dozen, 100 websites in PMPro Pro, there's this class of problem that wasn't purposeful work in the past that is purposeful work now. So for like page speed optimization, caching, object caching, some of these things, we can get into the technicals, like the nerdy stuff, but for our website, I just went from $200 a month to $400 a month. And it's faster and I don't have that problem anymore. And it's easier for me to just spend $2,400 a year than to like pay a developer or a team of developers and go through the whole pitch writing, shaping process with a team of people that I pay to figure out how to do like this performance improvement for my website. Like we're running PMPro Pro at like a high scale with over 100,000 users. And every other site that's running PMPro Pro at a high scale with over 100,000 users, they also have some levers they can turn. They're like, I just turn off this feature or I do this thing. And like, for me, it's fixed. But there's like a little bit of a performance hit for every PMPro Pro site because there's something we could fix, but it's really complicated. It's also a lot of expense. It's actually cheaper for us and everyone else who has that issue to just spend more money. But once we have 100 sites and already we're like planning for it, we're like, oh, we should like spend a little bit of time, fix this performance issue. It's going to make our hosting better. And that doesn't mean that we're going to like increase our margins and sell you less like you get more performance but less machine. Like no, your site's just going to become more performant. You're going to have more headroom to grow and stuff like that. So it's exciting that like we're building this product that everyone needs, that I think we can do differently in an open source way, and it's enabling us to do purposeful work that it wasn't before. Like now it's kind of makes more sense for us to dig into these performance things. Yeah, we're at an hour. So like if people have questions I can answer, I could talk about business constraints and focusing on the right thing and stuff like that.
There's no questions right now, but in case anybody is currently typing and waiting to drop them in, Jason, if you want to, since you're sharing your screen in the back end, if you want to pull up our live page, we could talk about what's going on next.
Yep.
Perfect. So our next event is actually going to be Coding with Sam. It will be, I think that's next Friday, August 1st.
Yep. That's what it says here.
And if you're not familiar with Coding with Sam, it's a really quick live stream. We try to keep them, it says 20 to 30 minutes. We actually try to keep them to about 15 minutes max. But it gives you a little bit of confidence in customizing your site. Like the code snippets Jason was talking about, I go on live on YouTube and I code one of those code recipes. If I can do it live on YouTube, you can do it for your membership site. I promise. And what's really cool is in mid-August, we'll be having an episode of Coding with Sam, but Sam will not be the one coding. Christy, our marketing specialist coordinator, she will be taking my place while I have a beach vacation.
So okay, is that the 15th?
The 15th will actually be coding
Join
with
Christy.
Sam.
Yeah.
It'll be
Coding with
Christy. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And she has even less coding experience than I do. So I'm really excited to do that.
And if folks are excited about how we do things here and want to host their websites on our purpose-built membership platform, we're accepting alpha applications right now. And this is, you're getting above the level white glove service. You know, some of the smartest people in the WordPress space and the membership space are going to like hand set up your website on our server. It's helping us learn things, you know, how to coordinate this so that we can launch it to open 100 people at a time. But right now, you know, we're kind of like white gloving it. But what you will get is like a hosting setup for $100 a month to start. But a few of the people coming already, like if you already are paying for more hosting, you know, you like if you need a bigger box, we're very transparent. We'll be upfront with that. We can run tests. We have these tools. We can run tests to figure out kind of like where you should sit. But a lot of websites can run on this $100 a month setup that we have. Yeah, we'd love to see you hosting on our platform there. It's for one site per account. So if you're an agency and you're hosting 10 different sites, you know, like this isn't a host for you. Maybe we'll kind of have a way to do that kind of a thing. If you're a multi-site, we're not supporting that yet. But if you have one membership site at one domain, and we'll host staging sites for you, you know, and you can host if you have subsites or marketing sites on other hosts, you can keep it there. But if you want the most important core central transactional part of your website that makes money to be running on the best possible setup, you know, you can get in on our alpha program and get in on that early. So reach out at paidmembershipspro.com/hosting and apply.
And I dropped the link in the chat as well.
Yeah. And if you're watching this like 2026, go to that same URL and you'll see all our, yeah.
And then at that point, it'll be just sign up for hosting and it won't be an application and it'll be beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
And then the next event that we have with Jason is August 7th, I believe. We're going to continue the Built on Values series, and it will be on being responsible for our own work.
Yeah. Taking responsibility.
Like Jason said at the beginning, it sounds like duh, you know, like something you learn in kindergarten, but I think we kind of take all of these to like a different level too.
Yeah.
I'll tie into
it. And without digging into it too much, I'll tease it by saying that I often say this is the most important of the values, because if you're struggling with the others, this is the mechanism that you use to get better. And I think of it as an owner with employees. It's like, I want them all to be responsible for their work. But what's fun, and we'll get into it, is when you flip it and you say, wait, if my employee is performing below standards, what responsibility do I have as a manager, as a coach, as an owner, you know, as a mentor to help them get there? What could we have done better? You know, and we talked, you know, with customers are upset. What responsibility do we have? Why are they upset? What should we do about it? So it's interesting. Like, it comes up all the time, and it's fun. If you have this in your work environment, working with folks who have this attribute, it makes work like more enjoyable and easy, and people aren't pushing work away. They're taking responsibility. It's nice. So we'll learn more about that in a couple weeks, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.